capitalism is literally the reason why we don't trust the government. We can't trust any of these pharmaceutical companies. You can't trust any companies or whatever. There's literally all these reports and all this stuff about how like capitalism is literally the reason why racism is as prevalent as it is in America. Like it all goes back to capitalism and how everything is set up to make money or whatever. And same thing with the prison system. Why are we as a country more focused on putting people in jail than actually rehabilitating people?
because it's too
Because
goddamn
again,
profitable.
if I fit somebody, I'd stop making money off them. But if I, send them to school and don't educate them and make it very difficult for them to get in college or whatever and all that, and then, make them, not college educated, and, their higher chance of being in the streets committing crime, so on and so forth. Also, I don't want you to have health care because I would rather you be broke and be working paycheck to paycheck or whatever and do some petty crime or whatever to feed your family or do whatever you want to do. I would much rather have you in jail because again, I have these rich people over here who they're gonna funnel all this money into the organizations that I want, and the rest of you poor motherfuckers, I need y'all to stay poor. So I need y'all in these jail systems, or I need you mopping up these floors. Like I don't need you in the middle. That's the reason why there's no middle class. I don't need you in the middle anymore. I need the rich people. I need the poor people. I don't need nobody in the middle anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and going into medicine, there's way more profit in the medicine than there is in a cure, right?
Yep.
Which kind of mind boggles me how, and mind you, I know we're just kind of printing money, and I don't know, we don't need to get into that conversation, but with all this COVID care, how is all this free? But I had to stand in line for a fucking flu shot back, a couple of years ago, and even then that
So
cost so much.
I do debate with that one though. One of the things that I personally feel, because I have heard that or whatever, like, how did the vaccine get done so quickly? Why is that free, so on and so forth. Now, and also you can kind of play into capitalism too, would explain this too. So we're in a situation where you have the flu that does this, that, and the third, or whatever, so on and so forth. Now, something that's a global pandemic, well, for one, coronavirus has been around forever or whatever. It's just this is a new mutation or whatever, so on and so forth. So we've been studying this for a while. And it's one of those situations where, okay, there's this flu in Arizona and that flu is different than this flu. Okay, just the, handful of people over here in Arizona are working on this. When you run into a global pandemic, you're going to have the global minds come together and all work on this. So it's the same thing with a product. If I have, any type of product that I created, a car or electric car. Let's use that as an example. You
Right.
have the electric car with Tesla or whatever, and you only have a couple of companies that can do electric cars. And then let's say the world leaders came together and let's say we finally agreed on climate change. It was like, yo, if we don't get rid of every single gas car within 5 years, we all die. And then all the minds come together, you're going to create an electric car that's going to be mass produced and available for everyone within months because finally everyone stopped on all their side projects. We're all focusing on one thing.
Right.
So
Same
that's
thing
the
with the
one
funding
thing.
too. So I can understand then the funding comes into play because we have these fundings for pandemics, for FEMA, right? All these little things in case shit happens, right? All these, I mean, I'm pretty sure money invested into the insurance as well, which I know a lot of companies got hit hard when Hurricane Katrina popped out because people were not expecting to pay that fucking bill, right? And that was a whole other shit. I think the part that I still, because mind you, there's truth and there's lies in it all. Both there's lies in the marketing of it, but there's truth behind the science. But again, it's about how we want it to fit whatever criteria or motive. And I still look back, and I just had a conversation earlier with a buddy where we talked about how the reason why that shit even became adaptable to people is because we wanted to test what the fuck would happen if it were to mix with human genes. Apparently, at some point when we were fucking with it, it wasn't susceptible to humans. So we fucking, I mean, or we could say we could blame it on the Wuhan, right, little laboratory that was
Yeah.
experimenting. And again, not to even throw like movie shit into it, but have you seen the reboot of Suicide Squad, the James
I
Gunn
have not.
version? It was
Uh,
premiered on HBO. It's dope as hell. It's gonna come back eventually if you have HBO Go or now. But the spoiler, the main mission that these fuckers are on is to destroy this lab that's in this other country just to wipe off the fingerprints that we might have, funded a little bit or kind of give some kind of aid. Because as we hear, like especially we hear when when politicians are out there fucking rabble rousing, and we hear about who their sponsor is or who's donating, and all of a sudden we hate this person, we hate Chick-fil-A because they gave money to a, a anti-gay whatever the fuck commercial or some shit. In that same essence, they had to wipe their hands off with it to let them know, hey, America didn't have nothing to do with this. As if we need to still kind of maintain the squeaky image. I think at the point where we can accept that we're just, motherfuckers trying to be better than anyone else, outside of it being hidden behind the misogyny of right wing fucking racists. Like
Yeah.
if we were to fucking all come together and realize, look, we have it good because we have to shit on other people. Sorry to say, you know what I'm saying? This when you wipe your ass, it wasn't clean,
And
But
that goes back to capitalism again,
mhm,
because that's the whole thing. The only way you have the 1% on the top, we need 99% at the bottom. And that's one of the things too, and I've talked about this a lot when with racism, and I had a real good conversation actually with my sister-in-law a couple weeks ago or whatnot, because she's like off the grid, isn't really into politics, anything, in the world. She's not on social media. She like really lives off the grid, if you will. And we had a real good conversation about racism, and we had a safe space conversation of like, you're a white girl that didn't grow up around any of this. Like, let's have a conversation about the difference between where you came up from and how you view the world and the things that I've experienced or whatever and all that. And we had a real good back and forth, whatever, talked about a bunch of things or whatever. And that was one of the things I was telling her about again with the 1%, 99%. And it was like when we go back to looking at the slave times or whatever. And it's one of those things where like, it's one of those where a lot of people can't wrap their brain around or whatnot, where like, okay, why would the South be fighting to keep slavery going when you essentially you had a whole bunch of you had rich people who had a whole bunch of slaves or whatever and they could make a whole bunch of money, and then you had poor people who may had a couple of slaves but they were never going to be able to compete with those big people. Like, why would they want slavery to keep going? Because like those rich people are always going to be up there, you're never going to be able to catch them because they have way more slaves to be able to do more labor, so like you're never going to catch them. Why would you want slavery to continue? And it's like,
well,
oh,
no.
because I still have people below me. So like I may not be a rich white person, but I'm better than those brown people. And that's what it came down to or whatever. And that's a lot of what is going on or whatever. And that's the reason why I'm gonna call it what it is personally, because I with Republicans, a lot of people voting Republican, a lot of times it comes down to finances, in a sense of like I've had conversations with people who are they're like they're regular 9 to 5 people making a regular paycheck or whatever, but oh yeah, I'm gonna start a business or I'm gonna do this and the third or whatever and all that,
Business
and so I'm
owners,
voting Republican. Yeah.
bro.
And like I'm voting Republican to keep money in my pockets or whatever and all that. And it's like, well, there's a chance you may not make it there. And so literally you're voting against your interests or whatever, keeping this person higher. But also, by voting this way, you're gonna still at least be above these people down here.
I mean, it's all about where you land in the margins, man. And I was very
Yeah.
surprised to know how many immigrants really vote right wing. And again, it's usually business owners, right? You know what I'm saying? You're
Yep.
people from the Middle East with the 7-Elevens or however race you want to be, the mom and pops, taco shops, whatever the case is, again, bottom dollar wins, which is why, and again, not to even praise Trump whatsoever, but bro, he's been, as far as like views go, he's been democratic in the essence to where he's one of those easygoing people. But again, he had to stick somewhere, and obviously there's,
Yeah.
he picked the lane in order to, again, to probably not even to get into that shit, but and this is another discussion I had earlier, is that there was a lot of closeted Republican votes that went on because unless you believe that Putin had anything to do with, and obviously there was some speculation I think that was proven about, kind of moving things in a certain
Some
avenue.
fraud. Yeah.
Regardless, people made the fucking votes, and people, and mind you, what we showcase out into the media, out into the world, is like when you see, and I love it too when the biggest stereotype of a down bad or whatever, who she's posting about how happy her family is and this and that, and really the motherfucker's doing it dirty, and this, because again, it's all about image. So why would
Yeah.
I let you know that I have these views that are kind of frowned upon? The reason why some races or people in general take
Yeah.
politics so seriously, because I don't want to let you know that I'm showing you my cards. You're gonna
Yeah.
think something of me if you fucking know that
Yeah.
I lean this way.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of the conversation came from, because the we've in passing that's come up a couple times, whatever, about the Trump thing. And it was one of those things where, like, okay, I don't get it. It's just like Democrats versus Republicans. It's like, well, yes and no. Like, I'm someone who I can say, I've been voting since I turned 18. I've been using my right to vote. And I've been friends with plenty of Republicans. Like, it's never been an issue of that person doesn't vote the same exact way with me or whatever, so I can't rock with them. The Trump thing was different. And that was the thing that I was explaining to her, that, like, that's the
Oh,
big difference, is that the Trump thing was completely different. And then furthermore, for all the things to come to light, and then for him to be out of office, and for some of those people to still be like gun ho about that, I'm sorry, I'm gonna call it what it is. If at this point, all this time removed and all the data, all the information is out there, people have the same access to Google that I do or whatever.
mhm.
If you're still a Trump supporter, you're a white supremacist. Like, there's no getting around it. And again, it's not one of those things where all Republicans are white supremacists or anything like that. That's not what the point is. But the point is, if you're on the Trump bandwagon, you're a white supremacist. And you don't have to be white to be a white supremacist, but that's what it is.
Like if you're eating into what the fuck is being fed, then you're not going based on statues. You're not going based on politics. You're going on some classism shit. So yeah, there's no doubt that, again, you don't how'd you say it? You don't have to be Republican to be racist, but if you're a fucking Trump supporter, based on what's shown, that you're connect the guy that
Yes,
does. I, I wanted to ask you, this person you had this conversation with, what was her economic status? Did that come up in the conversation at all? How did she
it
come
was
up?
it.
How did she grow up? Like, was she well off? Was she? w-
No, just a standard middle American, standard middle American. And so it was one of those situations where, this is a person that does not vote, doesn't get involved in any of the voting, doesn't follow the news,
as
doesn't follow social
bystander as she
media,
could possibly be? Sounds like.
like, as far away from all of this. And it was just like, okay, why is everybody so passionate about this? Like, what am I missing? And it's like, okay, let's have a conversation now. We'll go back and forth, and this is what it is. So it was one of those situations. It wasn't like a situation of having a conversation with a Trump supporter and like, hey, this is why you shouldn't support Trump. No, it's more so like, yeah, I need someone to give me their opinion, because I hear this side saying this, I hear this side saying that. I'm not really in the middle of any of this shit, so I don't know what the fuck to believe.
There's this. All right, so once we had our the main show hiatus, tried a couple different series. One of them that I was dabbling with is Dad Vibes. One of the first guests, the majority, coast whatever commentator that was with me, is a white guy, and this motherfucker grew up in the hood, like 16th Street Indian School. You know what I'm saying? Like ghetto. You know what I'm saying? Low income.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could put it. It's not like you're in the trap or whatever, but
He wasn't well off. Yeah,
it
yeah,
was,
yeah.
yeah, it wasn't well off for the damn sure. And of course, knowing some of his younger friends or some of his childhood friends, they were on the salacious side to where they were up to no good from time to time. And him, who has been in the hood, supposedly not until having to take these fucking psych courses of what's the shit they're trying to teach in school nowadays, the race critical race
The
theory,
Oh,
like
yeah, critical race. Yeah, yeah.
it wasn't until, and I don't know how the fuck he just so happened to be now a mandatory sort of prerequisite, but whatever the reason why he's taking psychology and getting into this shit, all of a sudden now he's saying, "Oh, now I see what my neighbors were going through." I'm like, how the fuck did it take a
Did you miss
goddamn
it?
college course? I don't want to. I really want to say that for as cool as this motherfucker was. Not to say that white people have any kind of agenda, not what I'm saying, because that's too fucking broad of a statement, but you have to know when luck is on your side. He wasn't the most religious person,
Yeah.
so you have to wonder yourself, if it ain't God behind you, what the fuck is it?
Yeah, and I've had that. I remember a buddy that I used to perform with, and I got into a debate with him about that, where I had said something or whatever, posted something about white privilege or whatever, and the dude got upset. And like, we had a spirited conversation. It was one of those where it was like, oh, all that white privilege stuff is a myth. Like, what do you mean? Like, I worked hard. And it's like, it's one of those things where people hear privilege and they take it a certain way. And so, like, it's one of those things where, okay, white privilege doesn't mean that the road is paved in gold and that everything is perfect. Like, life is hard, existing is hard. all white privilege means is you as a white person, there's just some extra stuff you ain't got to worry about. It's the same thing with there is heterosexual privilege. By being a straight person, there's some extra stuff you ain't got to worry about. It's the same thing with being born in the first world. Being born in America, there's some extra stuff that people in the third world worry about that I don't have to worry about.
Ain't
And
it
so it's
nice
just
that in this first world life that we get to live, we get a bitch about the Wi-Fi not working all the goddamn time. This motherfuckers ain't got drinking water.
exactly.